Viewers, welcome to the Personal Injury Law Show. This is a show that talks about everything current in the law of personal injuries and obviously of importance to you, the viewer. My name's Tony Carbone. I'm a personal injury lawyer of 25 years experience. With me today I've got John Karantzis, a partner in the law firm in Workers' Comp. Good evening, John.
Hi Tony, hi Viv, hi viewers.
And a former lawyer and current director of Gravia Media, the effervescent Vivian Ryan. Good evening, Viv.
Hello Tony. John, good evening viewers.
Viewers, there's been a lot of things happening in the community, so we'll be giving you an extended version of what's in the news, and also we'll bring you up to date with what's happening with firefighters, their plight to try and get presumptive legislation, and the issues at Fiskville.
However, before we get to that, Tony, what's in the news?
Well, the first story, Viv, this is one that's very, very interesting. Another Tartaglia fight.
Wow.
Two mates have been playing Tartaglia for 10 years. They win, and one of them doesn't want to pay up.
Look, it is really sad because obviously these guys were friends, although albeit one of them actually denies the friendship or to the extent in which the other one's alleging that they were friends. One gentleman, they're both from the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, friends for a long time. They used to go out fishing together and they had this sort of verbal arrangement whereby one would buy a lotto ticket one week and the other one would buy the alternative ticket the following week, on the understanding that whenever they won, or if they did win, that they would split their winnings right down the middle. Now, one of them is claiming that that actual agreement didn't exist, and the other friend is now bringing about a claim to actually try and receive half of those winnings. Now, yeah,
That's
very
what I find
interesting.
strange. John, if this agreement never existed, why did you give him $15,000 to pay off a car loan? What's that all about? That looks a bit sus.
On the face of it, yes, Tony. Of course, the other side is saying, "Oh, no, that was actually for the car." So, and as we all know, Tony, it's very difficult to prove something that's not in writing.
It is.
It is, but they'll
just
be able to probably backpedal, and
Yeah.
they might be able to call evidence of these tickets that were purchased over the years. If you
Yeah.
went to the same Tartaglia agency, for example.
And maybe the TATS agency owner would know of this
Yes,
arrangement.
it's possible.
Witnesses. So it's proceeding issued in the county court, Tony. So discovery.
Why in the county court? I mean, it's worth 2.5, half's 1.25.
Yes.
Wasn't it in the Supreme Court?
It should be in the Supreme Court.
It's just extraordinary, isn't
what's
it?
the difference between bringing an action in the Supreme and the County Court?
Probably really just costs, I guess. Costs are a bit higher in the Supreme Court.
Yep.
But, you know, viewers, the best way to protect yourself in these circumstances is when the person buys the ticket, get them to photograph it and send it to you.
Yes.
How can you get around that?
Yes.
Do you agree with this?
I agree, 100%, or even photocopy it or what
Yeah.
have you. So,
And ideally, a short note in writing signed by both parties.
Half each.
Exactly.
And then you never win.
Nice and simple.
This guy, they probably thought they're never going to win. $2.5 million.
Nice and simple.
Mind you, the people down the Mornington Peninsula are usually a bit more pleasant than this, but anyway, we'll keep moving. Viv, safety out to lunch. A lot of restaurant owners are breaching food standards, and some of the examples are just horrendous.
34 Victorian restaurants have been found or been fined for mishandling food, and some of them we've dined at in the past. And
Telling me.
yeah, it's pretty awful actually, and I think awful for the restaurateurs as well because they've been named and shamed now in this news article. So you know, I guess you know you've just as a business owner who serves food to the public, you just have to be so incredibly careful, especially on the back of the Langham Hotel that happened a few months back.
Yes.
But this seems to be ongoing, so I don't know whether the rules have become more stringent of recent times or...
Well, there's clear safe handling practices rules out there.
Yeah.
Now, and that's clear. So, you know, these proprietors need to abide by, you know, I don't think it's stringent. And there's cases where there's owners are allowing pets and animals into the property.
That's outrageous.
It's outrageous.
What I find extraordinary is this. Is it a case of not enough inspectors going around to these restaurants? Is it possible that they're taking advantage of that?
Yeah, I wonder whether or not the process and procedures have changed in the last 18 months, which has brought about such a significant number of fines being issued in Victoria. But I guess, you know, at the same time, these laws are there to protect the restaurateurs as well, because heaven forbid something actually happens to people who are consuming these food items, and then they can bring about a compensation claim too.
They've got claims, and we know, Tony, that these fines are significant. $10,000, $20,000, and to a small business owner, well, that could almost put you out of business.
But a lot of these restaurants, sadly, John and Viv, they're very big restaurants. We're not talking about those real small,
Big.
you know, businesses. We're talking about restaurants with names I mean, you know, they've been named and shamed anyway, but one of them's a Red Emperor, for example. That's extraordinary.
Exactly.
I ate there recently and
So just on
my
that
stomach's
though,
turning already.
can people make a claim if they haven't suffered any sort of significant trauma, illness? Can it be an emotional? I mean, can you have a psych injury from, you know, dining at a place that you know knowingly that there may have been feces in food or something to that effect? Not that we're suggesting that happened in this particular circumstance, but is there an opportunity for people to claim for?
It'd be a pretty rare case because, I mean, you'd have to have a 10% whole person impairment, John.
And it has to be permanent, Viv. That's really the issue. But if you've got a permanent injury arising out of food poisoning, well, then that's a different story.
And you take your victim as you find them. So if you've got someone that's already shaky in terms of their situation and it pushes them over the limit, then there you go. You're off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess we all just have to be mindful about where we eat, and restaurateurs, you need to be ensuring that you're accountable.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
I think so too.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, to Langham, if anything, they've probably improved their business with all the publicity they've got.
Absolutely.
John, jurors, apparently there's been a lot of aborted trials.
Oh, yes.
You know, recently
yes.
in the county court there was a criminal trial aborted.
Yes.
And it's cost a lot of
A
money.
5-week county court criminal trial, Tony, and the juror was doing some research at home
On the internet?
against the direction of the judge. Now, that's caused the trial to be aborted. Literally, we're talking not hundreds of thousands, almost into now the millions of dollars of legal costs.
Well, say
down the
$20,000,
drain.
$25,000 a day, viewers, and it's, 25 sitting days, John?
Yes.
That's nearly $500,000 just
Yeah.
there alone. That's a lot of money, isn't
That's
it?
an incredible amount of money.
And then you're talking about also the court time.
Exactly.
That's been taken up.
And they've got to start all over again.
Exactly.
So,
And-
so jurors are fined up to, I think, $17,000.
$17,000.
Do you think that's commensurate with the then loss of monies being afforded in this particular
Look, it probably
situation?
isn't, but at the same time, the legal system doesn't really want to go to town on
Yeah, no,
jurors.
exactly.
But,
Otherwise, it might, people start finding excuses not to go on
Exactly.
jury.
And this also occurs in civil trials, Viv. Our firm's had the experience, Tony, as we all know, whereby a juror on the last day of a 2-week trial put her hand up and said, oh, by the way, I've got this extra experience that I didn't really disclose,
Yeah, well,
which
that's
resulted in the trial being aborted.
Wow.
And again, $100,000 in legal costs down the drain.
Who pays for the costs? I mean, it's just out of pocket, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's outrageous.
Taxpayers.
Yes,
Isn't
the
it?
client pays
Yeah.
the costs.
So I guess, the lesson here is if you're a juror, you do have an onus of a huge responsibility to really not conduct your own research because of all of the reasons that we've just
Exactly.
And you
stated.
need to disclose all of your history when you ask the questions.
And really, your job's to listen to the evidence, not to go out there
That's
and find
all.
your own evidence.
Yeah.
That is all.
True?
That is all.
Absolutely.
Viewers, we've got to go to a sponsors break. After the break, we're going to take up this challenge of Uber and the taxi companies. Viewers, welcome back to the show. We've got this massive debate at the moment, in court, mind you, where Uber and taxi companies are fighting over space, John. Tell us a bit about it.
Well, this case, Tony, regards the taxi directorate has taken Uber to court alleging that they are operating a commercial business without the appropriate licence. Now, Uber, this fly-in company from San Francisco,
Which we love.
Billions of dollars.
worth billions of dollars, has come in and literally set up operation without licences, and literally anyone can just drive their own personal car and pick up people off the street.
Oh, look, I don't mind it personally because
How does that work?
waiting for taxis up 1.5 to 2 hours at a time. And Viv, you've had a lot of experiences with Uber.
Look,
what do you say?
I'm a huge supporter of Uber as a female who often utilises the services of taxis and drivers. And this is just one of those great services that provide a safety for someone in my situation. So you can actually, it's got a rate pointing system, or points rating system rather, so that if once you connect with your driver, you're able to quickly assess what their rating is. So anything less than a 4, you can easily stop them from coming and collecting you. And I have found them to be incredibly clean. I'm a huge advocate, and even Malcolm Turnbull actually supports the Uber service.
So
Good service.
He supports unlicensed commercial activity?
Well, he says that they're
Really?
servicing the needs of the community. And
Okay, so they're not licensed. They don't pay tax in Australia.
look, the tax thing's a whole other issue, but for me...
You don't mind that?
No, for me, it definitely...
I wish I could have a company like that.
It services the needs of the community, because invariably over peak periods, Christmas, you can never ever get a taxi.
I couldn't get one Saturday night after
We
the
always
final.
always
I struggled to get one.
problems. And then you've got the poor taxi driver that's bought
Look,
a taxi
yeah.
license for 500 grand.
I agree with that, but I also agree with
And-
this article which says it's a government issue. It's not something that should be
Yes.
fought out in the court. So really the government needs to legislate what's going to happen across the services of the taxi industry
To allow any-
compensate for those licenses that have had
Any
to
Joe
purchase.
Blow to get into
I
their
like-
own
Well-
personal car and pick people
Well,
up.
sweetheart, taxi drivers are a Joe Blow too. I mean, I think we've all had
No,
experience.
they're
with-
licensed and accredited.
We should get someone from the taxi directorate in here to discuss this,
I
and
agree.
maybe an Uber driver.
Yeah, it
but
would
the
be
way I
great.
see it is this:
I think there's one behind the camera.
I like them for the simple fact that they come when you need them,
Correct.
very quick.
Yep.
And they're very pleasant, aren't they?
Oh,
I've
they're
never had one that's
incredibly
not-
lovely.
yeah.
There's
Really?
water, there's mints.
Yeah.
Sounds like
they're-
the taxi driver I had on Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, yeah.
So I'm not sure what you're
Anyway.
talking about.
Well, look, if this means that the industry improves, it's good for all of us.
Well,
I
that's
agree.
good, and it
Yeah,
does have to
yeah.
be legislated. But you just can't have a company setting up shop without licenses and away you go.
Look, I agree. They
It
need
doesn't
to be
work.
They need
Society
to be,
doesn't work
Yeah,
like that.
They need to be paying tax, but at the same time, it needs to be then serviced on a level that everyone is actually making money. So if they're taxed at the higher scale than these drivers, it's not really something that's going to be, as...
Oh, so it's okay for them to get taxed less and Australian workers get taxed more.
At the end of the
Is that
day,
what
I
you're
think it's
saying?
about servicing the needs of the community.
We'll come back to
and-
this in another episode when we get people that are probably in a better position to discuss these issues.
Thanks, Tony,
What about the
for mediation.
snitch that's going to sue over jail burns?
The snitch.
Viv, what happened to this guy? He's been given information to the authorities
Yes.
about different inmates.
So,
And
essentially,
then-
So snitches have rights, Tony.
Yeah, well, apparently in
you're
this
saying?
circumstance.
Yeah.
So the facts
Okay.
of the case are that this prisoner was in prison for murder, which
Yep.
was an awful case.
And he
many,
still
many
has
years ago.
rights.
And he was imprisoned for, I think it was up to 13 years.
Yes.
He was put in
Only.
a special security section, maximum security section in the Port Phillip prison. He had obviously divulged some information around inmates, and he's now arguing. And then he was actually doused in
Hot water.
Hot water. So he's got
Yes.
significant burns.
Burns.
So he's now arguing that the authorities should have
Protected
known
him.
that this was going to happen, given that he was actually, divulging information about
And
other
it was
inmates.
common knowledge in the prison that he was a snitch. So
Correct.
in those circumstances, John,
Yeah.
I think there is a case.
Yeah, so he's got rights, but the victim that he killed doesn't have rights.
Oh, no, the victim that he killed
Yeah.
would have, doesn't have a lot of
Yeah,
rights,
great
actually,
system
come to
there.
think. But at the end of the day, this story sadly is about this prisoner.
Yep.
And under the legislation, Public Liability Wrongs Act,
That's all right.
he can sue.
He can get compensation, what, about $200, Tony?
I think it's a bit more than that.
What
Really?
would he likely receive?
Well, if he's got a more than 5% whole person impairment when assessed under the guides, John,
Yeah.
for burns, chances are, it's an assault, so possibly you don't even have to show the 5%.
No.
But isn't his claim for loss of earnings now that he's been
No, because
released?
he's in jail.
No, but
so
he's been released from jail.
Yeah.
This is the
And
situation.
he's 60 years old, so
it wouldn't be
really
extensive. No.
I mean, I don't understand how he can actually apply and have something significant, given that he was in jail. His loss of earnings would be arising out of the fact that he's got a criminal record.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's the bare minimum.
It's not a big case,
So what would he likely receive?
not much. Because he's going to have to prove that he would have found work
Exactly.
and that he was worth, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
average earnings, whatever that is, $800 a week. It's highly unlikely we'll get a big settlement.
No.
Before we go to a break, I want to do this story about the asbestos toxic cost in the schools, John.
Yes.
There's been something like 260 schools identified as having
It's-
asbestos in the buildings.
And the problem is, Tony, the state government has initially indicated that they will cover the cost of the removal. However, they've run out of money, Tony, and now the schools are, well, it's up in the air. They can't afford it themselves. We've got a situation where we've got young kids going to school in conditions where asbestos is rife.
Yes. Yeah. Viv, Warrandyte Primary School, the school's had to pay foot the bill, $27,000. You've got young kids. How do you feel about this?
Well, it's a shame because in this circumstance and in this school, it means that money is now put towards removal of asbestos as opposed to being, invested in, libraries and extra things to make, the school a lot more, amenable to the children. So that's the sad thing. But I think the shortfall is humongous. They had allocated $42 million to remove the asbestos from schools, but they've said that it's actually going to it looks like it's about an $800 million cost to do that.
It's about 1,200 schools.
Yeah.
At least.
But I think the most important thing to note and to not be alarmed by as parents is that asbestos is only really concerning when it's airborne. Is that right? When the particles are airborne?
When it's been disturbed.
Yes.
As is, left untouched, well then, nothing will happen.
But
once there's renovations at a school, once, it's damaged, that's when there's a problem.
That's it.
Which leads us into our next segment, really, doesn't it?
Viewers, we've got to go to a sponsors break. Stay tuned after the break. We'll be talking about Fiskville and the updates. And before that, thank you for coming on board, Vivian.
Thank you, always a pleasure.
Welcome back to the show. With the lovely Vivian's exit, we've got Nunzio Tartaglia, the insurance partner and law firm. Good evening, Nunz.
Good evening, Tony. Viewers, welcome.
We've got this unseasonably high spring weather in terms of heat, John.
It's very hot.
And it's probably a good opportunity to talk about the firefighters.
Yes.
And their plight and all the issues they've got to deal with, because we've got total fire bans, Nunz, and it's only early October, which is unusual.
Yeah, and they say it could be one of our hottest springs. So so it's on point, Tony.
And also, the other thing we want to talk about is Fiskville, John, of which you represent quite a few of the parties.
Exactly.
I mean, you've got a lot of plaintiffs that have got cancers. And Brian Potter, the whistleblower, who since passed away. And before he passed away, viewers, he had something like 15 diagnosed cancers, which is absolutely extraordinary. So, anyway, to kick us off, John, tell us a bit about this issue at Fiskville.
Well, Tony, Fiskville, as we all know, it was a training site for the firefighters. Now, there's an ongoing Victorian parliamentary inquiry looking into what happened in Fiskville and how the toxins have been affecting not only the workers there, but even the surrounding neighbours.
The neighbours are complaining too. Nunz, Fiskville's just outside of Ballarat.
Yeah.
There's 13,000 firefighters across Australia, and a lot of jurisdictions in Australia have got presumptive legislation. What is presumptive legislation?
Well, effectively, Tony, what that means is that it gets rid of all the bureaucracy. You don't have to try and fight for your rights. It's you've got the cancer, there's 12 cancers, you get a cancer, you get compensation.
The presumption is you got it at work.
That's right. So it said you don't have to fight the Workcover agent or whoever's the relevant authority at the time, and makes it a lot easier. And look, they're hard-working individuals that do a lot for the state and the community, and I think it's well deserved.
Unfortunately, Tony, at the moment, the Victorian Workcover Authority are rejecting all claims made in relation to Fiskville.
Yes.
And it's a very difficult claim, Tony. Cancer, per se...
It's very hard to prove.
It's very hard to prove the connection from work. This presumptive legislation, which we hope the Victorian Labor government will be bringing in, will make the life of the firefighter easier.
The onus won't be on the firefighter to prove that they got it at work.
Exactly.
And that's the hardest part of the actual case.
Exactly.
Exactly.
What about Queensland, Nunz? The government there said that if they won the election, that is a Labor government, they'd introduce the presumptive legislation. The parliamentary Labor government, and now Jo Ann Miller, the minister, have said that they're looking at it right at this moment, and I think they've already introduced it.
Yeah.
So,
Look, and like I said, like John said, I hope the Victorian government, shadows that and starts, using the same initiatives, because I said, the speech that the minister gave, I think was a great speech, and one that highlighted the importance of firefighters to our nation.
It's fantastic that the Queensland government has stuck by their word, and they're going to help out the firefighters, and we all can hope that the Victorian government does the same, Tony.
yes. On a lighter note, the 10 most stressful jobs listed as of 2015 are firefighting, which I sort of understand. I do understand that one.
That's number one, isn't it?
Yes, enlisted military personnel, military general, airline pilot, police officer, actor and broadcaster, event coordinator, photojournalist and newspaper boy. What about lawyers and dentists? They've got the highest level of stress.
No, I think dentists have maybe the highest level of suicide, but in terms of stress, obviously they don't fit the top 10, which doesn't really make sense.
I find that extraordinary. What about lawyers?
That's a good thing,
How come
Tony.
they don't fit?
No.
We don't stress, we can't afford to.
Actually, actor must be the stress of not being
Able to perform.
or not being working, non-stop.
Well, it's hard when actors don't have roles every day.
Oh, look, it's one of those fluid professions where, you've got no consistency. But, look, I think the fact that, firefighters are the number one just shows how hard of a job it is and how much they need to be protected.
And Tony, this article is a perfect
Yeah, I
example,
wanted to bring
isn't
on to
it?
this article, John and Nunz. This story here, 31st of August 2015, the firefighters go to emergency situations. So if there's a car accident, they have to attend.
Yes.
Anything that's designated as an emergency, they're the first ones
They
to attend.
always attend.
Now, tell us a bit more about this story, John.
Oh, Tony, the firefighters, they're called out to a burning car.
Yes.
A random burning car, which we see more and more now, don't we, Tony?
Yes, yes.
And there's a guy there that attacks them.
With an axe, I think.
With an axe.
Exactly.
And what the firefighters do, Nunz?
Well, they put the hose on him to try and, in self-defence, to put him away, or to get him away, because obviously they're in fear for their safety, understandably.
So Nunz, they attended the scene of this fire to try and save this man, and they turned the hose on him because he turned on them with an axe.
Yeah, look, I think we've had this issue in the past, in past episodes, about how ambulance officers, firefighters, when they get to nurses, they get to scenes and they've got to deal with a lot of these situations where they are attacked. And again, I think it's more they've got to look at it because they've got to be protected. And they're not trained for something like this.
No,
they're trained to get rid of a fire, not to stop a man from wielding axe.
Yes.
And just to prove that point, Nunz, what happened with this guy? He went down the street, attacked two other people, stole their wallets, and eventually they apprehended him because they had to get the dog squad involved.
Yeah.
And
the dog bit him, Tony.
Yeah, well, it's the only way you're going to control this
Fortunately.
bloke.
There could be a case there, John.
No, I doubt it very much. Anyway, John, what would you say to the people that have worked in the fire department or Fiskville at the moment, whilst we're waiting for this parliamentary inquiry, and as to whether they'll pick up the tab for everyone's sicknesses and cancers?
Unfortunately, Tony, at the moment it is a waiting game. We hope that the inquiry will resolve and make these findings. However, a bit of research is still required by the actual inquiry. But we hope, Tony, we think it's going in the right direction.
Surely it has to be, because all the the findings, some of the preliminary findings that have been detailed, that it's not pointing in the right direction for the government.
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, what's really surprising is that all the studies they've ever done, and when they've looked around the world where they've got presumptive legislation, there's about 10 common cancers that are listed that firefighters seem to get if they've been employed between 5 and 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Testicular cancer, you get it after 5 years. You can get lung cancers, you can get... there's so many of them.
And it's not novel, Tony. Canada has presumptive legislation, and many states in America, I think over 20, have presumptive legislation. So
it's not novel.
So it's not novel.
Peter Marshall, who's the United Fire Chief, Nunz, when he came on the show, and we'll get him on in due course, and he's also the president of the union, the Firefighters Union, he said that if they had presumptive legislation, the cost to community wouldn't be that high anyway.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, look at the money they're spending now on defending a lot of these claims when it could just go straight to the firefighters, and he said you're getting rid of the red tape. So makes sense.
John, if anyone's in this situation, what would you suggest?
Tony, they should seek legal advice. At Nunzio Carbone, we specialise in workers' compensation claims, and this is a perfect area that, sure, it will take time, however, we're here to help.
Yes, yes. And on that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the show. John, thanks for coming on board. Nunzio, thanks for coming on board.
Thanks, Tony.
Viewers, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for future episodes. Go to our YouTube for past episodes. Go to our social media platforms, and always remember to stay safe.